In the early 70s, I built a log cabin up here. I assume it's still standing. I don't know. I haven't been back since. One evening, when I was working on it, I was sawing the notches in the log. You saw them out like with a little chainsaw, and then you take a hatchet and you chop the parts out, or you can use a chisel and the backside of the hatchet. I was using a hatchet, so it made a chop, chop, chop sound in the wood that was audible for a long ways, because I was 8 or 9 logs up the wall and hitting it really hard, and you could hear it for a long ways. I was working on it after dinner, and sun had gone down, but it was a long ways from dark yet. And all of a sudden, there was an incredible scream sound. A few other people have heard it, and their attempts at defining it, they combine elephants and horses and lions and monkeys and do it all at once, all at the same time. It started out a very low guttural sound and got louder and louder. It was PA system loud. It got louder and louder, and then way up high escalated and stopped. And I thought, my God, something's getting killed. But it repeated that whole thing. I've been a musician for many, many years, and always played by ear, so I could recognize a melody. And this was the same thing. It repeated twice. I would guess, as memory serves me, I would guess it was about 10 seconds long for each one of those screams. I had no idea what it was. There was another guy up here, and he owned the property I was building the cabin on. He had been down hunting for grouse, and the sound came from that direction, and he was in that direction. Nobody else was up there. I know he couldn't have done it. There's no way. There's no way. And he came boiling up out of the brush with his little shotgun that he'd been looking for grouse with, and he says, well, I saw a bear. And what the heck was that? Meaning the sound. I said, I don't know. We armed ourselves to the teeth with 30-30s and 357s and everything else we could come up with, got in his pickup and went where the sound came from. And I'd been out in the woods long enough to be able to walk by a bed where something slept the night before and smell it. You could smell the bed, smell the animal, notice plants, leaves, anything that's been messed with. And we scoured that whole area, and there wasn't a pebble. There wasn't a pebble turned over. And so I surmised it wasn't something getting killed, but I still had no idea what it was. That was in the early 70s. Life goes on. In 89 or so, I was watching a program on A&E, Discovery, who knows. And it was about Bigfoot. It was about Sasquatch. And there was a recording at the end. There was a scene of a pasture, a little building back in the end of it, a barn way back there. And there was a recording of a supposed Bigfoot sound. And I just turned white when I heard that. And that was the first time I associated this encounter up here with Sasquatch or Bigfoot. I never saw any footprints, never saw any evidence. There wasn't any of the quintessential Bigfoot stuff, the knocking at night. There was a lot of stuff going on at night because I camped right next to the stream. You know, I camped next to water, and it's the highway. you know, the animal highway, stuff walking around at night that I never saw, but I heard. Spent most of that summer uh, with a little black bear for a neighbor. He was kind of fun. Just one close encounter with him, but that's a whole different story. Um, there weren't any of the lean-tos. There, I didn't see any of the broken off trees that you hear about. But I wasn't looking for that. You have a tendency to see what you're looking for. Uh, Prefaced by what's kind of called or referred to as a crack event. A crack event is something of sufficient magnitude to whack your paradigms open a little bit, like, okay, this is way different than anything I've ever experienced before, and then you start learning about it, and that's more or less what happened with this. And I've been doing a lot of internet research. I don't know of any other sightings that have been reported. There was another one about 100 yards from mine a couple years prior to that. The other witness, who is now deceased, to my encounter, he was walking from his outhouse back to his cabin in the dark at night, and all of a sudden he was confronted with something that was way bigger and way taller than he was, way hairier, and standing upright. He didn't know what it was. It was very dark out. He could just barely see it, but it wasn't letting him go around. He had a .38 pistol. He fired all 6 shots out of the .38 into the ground in front of it. A .38 on something that size is like a cap gun trying to stop a house. It just doesn't work, forget it. And he fired it into the ground knowing that, you know, that I don't have enough firepower to do anything dangerous to this thing, but I'm trying to scare it out of being here. And after he fired the last shot, it stepped around him and came down right down through here. And he said he could hear it breaking off tree branches. He said branches. I would imagine it's the small trees that you see that are broken off. Stuff about 2 inches, maybe 2.5 inches in diameter, 8 to 10 feet off the ground, just snapped off. Not wiggled, not jiggled, not pulled over until it breaks or whatever, absolutely snapped off. And he said he could hear it doing that all the way down here. It's about, I'd guess, a mile, mile and a half up this hill, up that road. Fine road that it is. And that's as good as it gets, I think, all the way from here to there, which is why I'm not going to do it today. I've got a 2-wheel drive pickup. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. I didn't see it, so I can't say, I know there's this giant hairy thing, blah, blah, blah. I heard something that just doesn't fit with anything else that's out here. I've had bull elk bugle in my face from about 50 feet away, and it's like, yeah, well, that's fine, but that's not what I heard that night, that evening. I've heard mountain lions, I've heard zoo lions, I've heard bears, I've heard howler monkeys in the jungle in Costa Rica. I've heard virtually everything. Grizzlies, I've heard them roar over the line in North Idaho. That's the next stop. All of those combined, maybe, might begin to approach what this sounded like. Best I can do. Thanks for watching. That's my story. I'm sticking with it. And hopefully someday I'll get something on video that I can show. That'd be nice. That'd be nice. It's kind of my quest. Have fun. My contention on that sound is that it's twofold. Supposedly Bigfoot and Sasquatch, same thing, use what's called knocking to communicate with each other over long distances. They'll take a piece of wood, yay by whatever, anything that's laying around, and there's tons of it, and hit a tree trunk a couple of times, 3 times, wait a while, do it again. I've seen people attempt to entice Bigfoot to come to them by knocking and doing it rapidly. Bam, 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 bam. And I don't know that that's a good way to do it. I would slow down. They're not in a big hurry. They don't have to hyper fast snare drum all this stuff. I did some knocks last night. I heard one response and it was thud. I don't think it had anything to do with the Sasquatch. I wanted it to, but hey, it's up to them. It's up to them. The scream sound, it was enticed by the knocking sound of me and my hatchet chopping that wood. That's the same kind of sound that happens with the knocking. So that attracted whatever this was. The scream it did at me was twofold. It alerts any others that are within hearing distance, any other Sasquatch. It alerts them that this is a false alarm. Don't come over here. And it also intimidates whoever's doing it into leaving. It's a scare thing. It's a scare thing. I was terrified without knowing what it was. I was terrified. That's my personal take on what the scream sound is. Scare you away. Tell everybody else it's a false alarm. Don't show up. Have fun looking.